Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to take a deep dive into something we all deal with: habits.
Yeah, habits. We're going way beyond just basic motivation tips this time.
Right. We want to give you guys something that'll actually help you, understand how habits really work.
We're going to be digging deep into the science behind them.
Yeah, we're going to be analyzing, what you're doing every day, figuring out what triggers those habits.
And then we're going to give you guys the tools to actually change those habits for the better.
Exactly. And, our main source material today is going to be James Clear's Atomic Habits, but this isn't just like a big report or anything.
No, we're going way deeper than that. We're going to be pulling out some super fascinating insights.
Did you know that just visualizing your progress can actually make a habit stick?
Seriously. We'll get into why that is, but first, let's back up a bit.
Okay, so let's break it down. This whole habit formation thing, it's got 4 stages, right?
You got it. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Okay, I think I get it. So let's say I'm at my desk and I hear that little ding of a new email.
Bingo, that's your cue. It's like a little piece of information that says, hey, there might be a reward coming your way.
Okay, so then I get this urge to check my email. I gotta see what's in there, right?
That's the craving. It's the desire to get that reward. And in this case, maybe it's that satisfying feeling of knowing what the email is about.
Well, maybe even a little hit of dopamine.
Exactly. Dopamine plays a huge role here. It's this neurotransmitter that gets released when you anticipate a reward. And that's what makes you want to repeat that behavior.
So my brain's basically saying, hey, checking email made you feel good last time. Let's do it again.
That's it. And then you actually do it. You open your email, read the message, and bam, that's the response.
And then the reward is finding out what the email is all about. So this whole cycle, like a feedback loop.
Exactly. And it's happening constantly all day long with tons of different habits. It's wild, right?
So then how do we actually change those habits? I mean, it's like we're on autopilot sometimes.
Well, the first step is being aware of them, right? Clear talks about this thing called a habit scorecard.
Oh, yeah. Basically, you just write down everything you do in a day, good or bad.
Exactly. Just getting it all out there can be a huge eye-opener.
I can imagine. It's probably easy to, not even realize some of the things we're doing so often.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we're not always aware of the things that trigger those actions. Those unconscious cues, they can be crazy powerful.
Unconscious cues, huh? Okay, give me an example of that.
So Claire tells this story about a therapist who quit smoking years ago, decades ago.
Wow, that's awesome.
Right. But then one day she goes horseback riding, something she used to do while she was smoking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden she gets this urge to light up. She doesn't even know why.
Whoa, that's crazy. So even after all that time, that cue was still there, hidden in her brain somewhere.
It just shows you how deep these patterns run. But the good news is, once you're aware of them, you can start to change them.
Okay, so how do we do that? Is it just a matter of willpower?
Willpower definitely helps. But Clear talks about this other idea called friction.
Friction. Now that's interesting. I'm all ears. Tell me more.
It's all about making your bad habits harder to do and making the good ones easier.
I see where you're going with this. So if I want to spend less time on my phone, maybe I delete those social media apps.
Exactly. Suddenly, it's not so easy to just mindlessly scroll through Instagram, right? You'd have to go through the effort of downloading the app again.
Yeah, I see how that could create some friction. It gives you a chance to stop and think about what you're doing.
Exactly. That little bit of friction can be enough to break the habit loop.
Wow.
And on the flip side, you want to make those good habits as easy as possible.
I like where you're going with this.
It's what Clear calls the 2-minute rule. So let's say you want to start reading more. Just commit to reading 1 page a day.
Okay, yeah, that seems manageable. You're removing all those excuses.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, maybe that 1 page turns into 2, then a chapter, and so on.
That's what we like to hear. So we're making bad habits harder, good habits easier. What else can we do?
Well, there are a couple more tools we can add to our toolbox. Things like implementation intentions and habit stacking. They're all about taking action.
Okay, I remember those in the book. Refresh my memory on how they work.
So an implementation intention is like a promise to yourself, but a really specific one. Instead of saying, I'll exercise more, you say, I'm going for a run on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m.
So no more vague goals. You're making a real commitment.
Right. You're telling your brain exactly what to do and when to do it. And studies show that this actually works. People who make these kinds of plans are way more likely to follow through.
That's cool. I'm all about making things easier for myself. What about habit stacking? How does that work?
So habit stacking is all about linking a new habit to an existing one. Like, after I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for a minute.
Oh, I get it. You're piggybacking on a habit you already do without thinking.
You got it. You're basically using the power of your current habits to build new ones. It's super clever.
I like it. This is all making so much sense. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand this whole habit thing.
I'm glad to hear it. But there's actually more to it than just these actions. We need to talk about the role of identity.
Oh, okay. Identity. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more about that.
It's about aligning your habits with the kind of person you want to become. Think about it. Every time you write, you're basically saying, I am a writer. Every time you cook a healthy meal, you're saying, I am a healthy person.
Whoa, I never thought about it that way. So it's not just about the actions themselves, it's about what those actions say about us.
You got it. Your habits are like evidence of your identity. So if you want to change your behavior, start by deciding who you want to be, and then prove it to yourself with small wins.
Wow, that is powerful stuff. So it's not just about losing weight or learning a new skill. It's about becoming the kind of person who does those things naturally.
Exactly. It's about creating an identity that supports those habits you want.
This is seriously blowing my mind. But let's face it, sometimes even with the best intentions, it's tough to make those changes stick.
You're absolutely right. And that's where understanding dopamine comes in.
Okay, bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm ready for more dopamine talk. How does it all fit together?
Well, we've talked about how dopamine gets released when you anticipate a reward. But the thing is, our brains are wired for instant gratification.
Oh, tell me about it. A cookie now is way more tempting than a healthier me later.
I hear you. And that's the challenge with building good habits, right? The costs are often in the present, but the rewards are way down the line.
So how do we fight that urge for instant gratification? Is it even possible?
It is. And one really powerful strategy is habit tracking.
Oh yeah, habit tracking. I've tried those before. Do they really work?
They can be incredibly effective. Because when you track your progress, you're basically creating visual proof of your efforts.
I see. So you get that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And it motivates you to keep going.
Exactly. It's like a tangible reminder of your commitment. Plus, there's something satisfying about checking off a box or filling in a tracker, you know?
I feel you. Okay, I'm convinced. Habit tracking is officially back on my to-do list. But are there any downsides to, like, focusing too much on tracking and measuring everything?
That's a great question. And yes, there can be. Clear warns against getting too obsessed with the numbers. You don't want to lose sight of the real reason you're building the habit in the first place.
Right. It's like you don't want to get so caught up in hitting 10,000 steps a day that you forget about actually enjoying your walks and getting some fresh air.
Exactly. Those metrics are useful, but they shouldn't be the only thing you focus on.
Makes total sense. It's about finding that balance between tracking progress and staying connected to the why behind the habit.
You nailed it.
This has been so insightful, honestly. I'm looking at my own habits in a whole new way now.
That's fantastic to hear. And remember, you don't have to change everything overnight. Start small. Just pick one habit you want to work on.
Okay, I like that. Keep it simple.
Right. Focus on mastering those 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. And remember to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I'm also going to keep in mind the importance of finding habits that work with my personality. And, of course, keep exploring new possibilities as I go.
That's the spirit. Remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. And even small changes, when you do them consistently, can lead to some pretty amazing results.
I love that. This whole deep dive has been a game changer for me. I can't wait to see what happens as I put all this into practice.
Me too. It's amazing how understanding this stuff can really give you the power to create the life you want.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, let's take a minute to recap some of the key takeaways for our listeners.
Sounds good. Let's break it all down into some actionable steps they can start taking today.
Perfect. Let's do it. All right, so we're back, and I'm ready to keep this habit conversation going.
Great. I think a lot of people struggle with staying motivated, right? Like starting a new habit, okay, maybe you can do that for a little bit. But how do you keep going?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Life happens, motivation fades. What's the secret to staying on track?
Well, there's no magic formula, unfortunately.
Figures.
But Clear has some really great advice on this in Atomic Habits.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
He talks about this coach who worked with Olympic athletes.
Olympic athletes. Talk about motivation. I mean, those are some of those disciplined people on the planet, right?
You'd think so, right? But even those elite athletes, they get bored sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, they struggle with motivation too. It happens to everyone.
Wow, I guess that makes me feel a little better about my own struggles.
Right. It's normal to feel that way sometimes.
So what's the difference then? What makes those Olympians so, I don't know, superhuman?
Well, the key is they show up and do the work, even when they don't feel like it.
I know, easier said than done.
Definitely.
Hmm.
But there are things we can do to make it a little easier on ourselves.
Okay, I'm listening. What are your tips?
One thing that can really help is focusing on the process, not the outcome.
Okay. I think I get what you mean, but give me an
Oh,
example.
sure. So instead of obsessing over losing 10 pounds, focus on going for that walk every day.
So it's like shift your attention to the actions, not the end result.
You got it. And that way, even if you're not seeing those results right away, you're still building momentum. You're reinforcing that positive identity we talked about earlier.
I like that. It's about enjoying the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Exactly. And trust that the results will come if you just keep showing up.
Okay, I can get behind that. Any other tips for staying motivated?
Another great strategy is using variable rewards.
Variable rewards. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
So think about it this way. Let's say you always reward yourself with a cookie after a workout. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
But after a while, it might get kind of predictable. You lose that excitement.
Okay, I see what you mean.
But now imagine you mix it up. Sometimes it's a cookie, sometimes it's a smoothie, sometimes it's watching your favorite show.
Ooh, now that's way more interesting. I'd be way more motivated if I didn't know what reward was coming.
Right. It keeps things exciting, and it taps into that natural curiosity we all have, and it all goes back to dopamine. Our brains love a little surprise.
I feel like I'm learning so much about my brain today.
It's fascinating stuff, right? But look, let's be real here. We're all human. We're going to slip up sometimes. We'll miss a workout, eat that extra slice of pizza.
Oh, yeah.
And that's okay. The key is to not let one slip up derail your entire progress. Clear has this great saying, never miss twice.
Ooh, never miss twice. I like that. So it's not about being perfect. It's about getting back on track quickly.
Exactly. Everyone makes mistakes. It's what you do after the mistake that really matters.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So one slip up doesn't mean you failed. It's just a little bump in the road.
And that's where self-compassion comes in, right? Beating yourself up isn't going to help you get back on track. It'll just make you feel worse.
This is so refreshing to hear. It's like taking all that pressure off.
Exactly. Remember, we're aiming for long-term change here, not perfection every single day.
So we've talked a lot about building good habits and breaking bad ones. But what about habits that aren't necessarily bad, but maybe they're just not serving us anymore?
That's a great question. And it's something we all need to ask ourselves sometimes.
Right. Like maybe I used to love running marathons, but now it just stresses me out.
Yeah.
How do I know when it's time to let go of a habit like that?
It's all about being honest with yourself, right? Asking if those habits are still aligned with your goals and values. Are they still moving you in the direction you want to go?
I love that. It's like taking a step back and reassessing, making sure my habits are still supporting the person I want to be.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to reflect on your habits regularly. See what's working, what's not, what needs to change.
That makes so much sense. It's like anything else in life. We're constantly evolving, and our habits need to evolve with us.
Exactly. Continuous improvement. Always looking for ways to make things better.
I'm really starting to realize that this whole habit thing is a journey. It's not about reaching some endpoint. It's about constantly learning and adapting.
I love that. It's about embracing the process, for sure.
Well, this whole deep dive has been a game changer for me. I feel like I finally have the tools and knowledge I need to make some real changes in my life.
That's great to hear. Just remember, you don't have to do everything at once.
Right. Baby steps.
Start small, pick one habit, and focus on those 4 stages. Cue, craving, response, reward. And don't forget about making it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
You got it. I'm also going to remember the importance of finding habits that fit my personality and keep exploring new things as I grow and change.
That's the spirit. And remember, progress over perfection. And even small changes, when you're consistent, can have a huge impact.
I love that. I'm so excited to put all this into practice.
Me too. It's amazing how powerful this stuff can be once you understand it.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's do a quick recap of some of the key takeaways for our listeners.
Sounds good. Let's distill all of this wisdom into some actionable steps they can start using today.
Perfect. Let's do it. Okay, so first things first, those 4 stages of habit formation.
Right. Cue, craving, response, and reward. It's amazing how such a simple framework can be so powerful, right?
It really is. It's like you're suddenly able to see those hidden patterns in your own behavior.
And once you see them, you can start to change them.
Exactly. We also talked about making those bad habits harder to do and good habits easier.
Oh yeah, the power of friction. It's such a simple idea, but it really works.
And who could forget those awesome tools?
Yeah.
Implementation intentions and habit stacking.
Those are game changers for sure. They help you take those good intentions and turn them into real actions.
But it's not all about external strategies, right?
Yeah.
We also need to consider our identity.
Absolutely. Our habits are like votes for the kind of person we want to be. That was a huge takeaway for me.
Me too. It's not just about achieving specific outcomes. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally does those things.
Right. And that's a much more sustainable way to change your behavior, right? It's not about willpower or forcing yourself to do things you hate.
It's about creating an identity that supports those habits you want.
Exactly. And we can't forget about dopamine and that urge for instant gratification.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one to fight.
But understanding how our brains work can help us make those good habits more appealing and satisfying.
That's where habit tracking comes in.
Right. It
Yeah.
gives you that visual proof of progress, which can be super motivating.
And it gives you those little dopamine hits along the way, which helps you stay on track.
Exactly. But it's also important to find that balance between tracking and staying connected to the deeper why behind your habits,
But
right?
yeah, the metrics are helpful, but they shouldn't be the only thing you focus on. Don't lose sight of the real reason you're doing it.
And let's not forget about self-compassion. We're all human. We're going to slip up sometimes. The key is to just get back on track and not beat yourself up about it.
Right. Never miss twice.
Exactly. And remember, this whole habit journey is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about continuous improvement, always looking for ways to refine your habits and make them work better for you.
Well said. I think that about wraps up our deep dive into habits. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
You've got the tools, you've got the knowledge, now go out there and put it into practice. Start small, choose one habit you want to work on, and just focus on those 4 stages. Cue, craving, response, and reward. And remember, make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. You can do this.
Amazing advice. I'm definitely feeling inspired to take action. To our listeners, remember that you have the power to change your habits, and in doing so, you can change your life. Until next time, keep diving deep.